It was a normal day, doom scrolling as usual, when I stumbled on this video. And it made me wonder, what if the cure to male loneliness isn't finding a partner, but having a child? I'll admit, I've thought about this before. Growing up, I always had this urge to take care of a younger sister. As I got older, that evolved into imagining having a daughter. Weird? Maybe. Relatable? Possibly. So in this video, we're going to investigate the psychology, the social factors, the cultural reasons behind this urge, and finally answer the question, is the cure to male loneliness actually becoming a single father? Everyone has a father. Present, absent, alive, or gone is a biological fact. But in society, there are many different parenting setups. According to the American Psychology Association, single-parent families are families with children under age 18 headed by a parent who is widowed or divorced and not remarried, or by a parent who has never married. And according to the US Census Bureau in 2022, about 20% of those single-parent families are headed by single fathers. But to ask whether single fatherhood could cure loneliness, we also need to understand what loneliness itself means. The American Psychology Association defines loneliness as the distressing experience that occurs when one's social relationships are perceived as less in quantity, and especially in quality than desired. Men in particular tend to report higher levels of social isolation and are less likely than women to have close friends or confide in others, according to Arnett and Schwab in 2023. So male loneliness isn't just about lacking a partner, it's about deeper, broader lack of connection. Men today report having fewer close friendships than previous generations. The proportion of men who say they have no close friends has increased from just 3% in 1990 to 15% in 2021, according to American Perspective surveys in 2021. In romantic life, men are also increasingly disconnected. Nearly 63% of men under 30 report being single compared to 34% of women of the same age. This growing relational gap has been made worse by traditional masculinity norms, which encourage emotional stoicism and discourage men from seeking help or intimacy. The COVID-19 pandemic also amplified isolation, but men have generally been slower to rebuild their social networks afterward. On top of this, online platforms like TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube have turned male loneliness into a meme-fied discourse. What began as jokes, men will literally do something instead of going to therapy, has helped make loneliness more visible while also trivializing it. As a result, male loneliness has become both a meme and a recognized social crisis. So at its core, we're comparing two things: men struggling with deep social disconnection and fatherhood as one of society's most demanding but purposeful roles. The question is whether one can actually solve the other. Loneliness is not a trivial feeling. It is a deep, neurological signal that something essential is missing. Research shows that the experience of a social isolation activates the same brain regions associated with physical pain. This means that the drive to escape loneliness is not only emotional but biological. For men who lack strong friendships or intimate relationships, fatherhood begins to look like an alternative route to the connection they crave. A key framework here is attachment theory. Humans are hardwired for dependable emotional bonds. When those bonds are absent, people often seek replacements that feel more secure. Some men imagine fatherhood as the ultimate bond, a relationship where their child depends on them and in return provides unconditional love. Erik Erikson described this developmental task as generativity, the desire to nurture and guide the next generation. In this sense, single fatherhood can feel like an answer to both personal loneliness and the burden needed to live with purpose. Psychology also shows us how social norms shape men's emotional outlets. In many cultures, men are discouraged from showing vulnerability to peers or friends. Displays of tenderness and care can be stigmatized as unmasculine. Fatherhood, however, offers a socially approved space to express those same emotions. Holding, protecting, and nurturing a child allows men to fulfill their need for intimacy without challenging traditional masculinity. Finally, we cannot ignore how loneliness itself creates idealized expectations. Isolation pushes people to imagine relationships where acceptance is guaranteed. Children are often perceived as pure and non-judgmental figures who will love you no matter what. This makes the prospect of fatherhood particularly appealing to lonely men. Yet this ideal can be dangerous because it risks placing the burden of curing loneliness on the child. Still, the psychological attraction is powerful, and it helps explain why the idea of single fatherhood resonates so strongly. One of the clearest forces at play is changing gender roles. For generations, men were expected to be providers while women were cast as caregivers. But as gender roles shift, fatherhood has begun to expand beyond financial responsibility. Men are increasingly encouraged or sometimes pressured to be more emotionally present, nurturing, and hands-on. This cultural shift makes the image of an emotionally involved father not only acceptable, but in many cases admirable. In societies where men have fewer outlets for intimacy, fatherhood becomes one of the few roles where showing care is both celebrated and socially validated. Another important factor is the decline of traditional communities. In modern urban life, friendship networks and extended families are shrinking. Where once men relied on tight-knit communities or large family structures for belonging, many now face social fragmentation. The nuclear family, and by extension, the father-child bond, takes an added weight as a primary source of meaning and connection. In this environment, fatherhood looks less like one role among many and more like the central anchor of the man's identity. Economic and social pressures also play a role. In some contexts, men may feel increasingly disconnected from traditional measures of success, such as stable employment, property ownership, or long-term marriage. Becoming a father, even as a single parent, offers a sense of stability and purpose that other social institutions no longer reliably provide. It becomes a symbolic way of reclaiming relevance in a society where many men feel left behind. The first complication is the burden placed on the child. If fatherhood is pursued primarily as a way to fix loneliness, there is a risk of turning the child into an emotional substitute for adult relationships. Children need care, guidance, and stability, not the responsibility of filling their parents' emotional void. While a father may find meaning in raising a child, it is crucial to remember that the child is not there to cure loneliness, but to be nurtured as an independent person. Secondly, there are practical and economic realities. Single parenting, regardless of gender, is one of the most demanding roles in society. It requires balancing income, childcare, education, and emotional support, often without sufficient institutional backing. Studies consistently show that single-parent households face higher rates of financial issues. For men who already feel disconnected or struggling, the added strain of sole parenthood could intensify rather than alleviate loneliness. There is also the issue of social stigma. Although cultural narratives around fatherhood are shifting, single fathers still face skepticism. Many societies continue to see caregiving as primarily a maternal role, leaving men with less support from extended family, community institutions, or even the legal system. This can result in fathers being isolated in the very role they hoped would provide connection. Finally, there is a broader ethical question. Should fatherhood be approached as a personal cure or a responsibility to another human being? Framing fatherhood solely as a solution to loneliness risks overlooking the lifelong duty and sacrifices it entails. Loneliness may be real and pressing, but children are not tools for self-healing. They are individuals who require commitment, patience, and care beyond their parents' needs. In this way, single fatherhood can be both an opportunity for deep connection and a potential trap. It holds the promise of meaning but carries risk if pursued for the wrong reasons. Recognizing these complications helps us approach the original question with nuance rather than romanticization. Is becoming a single father truly the cure to male loneliness? The honest answer is no, not in itself. Fatherhood can bring connection, purpose, and meaning. But if it is pursued as a fix for isolation, it risks creating more problems than it solves. The deeper issue isn't the absence of a child, it's the absence of connection, intimacy, and community. The actual cure to male loneliness lies in building healthy, reciprocal relationships across multiple areas of life. Friendships, romantic relationships, family ties, and community engagement all provide emotional bonds that humans need. What makes fatherhood attractive to some men is the promise of unconditional love. But this same sense of belonging can and must be cultivated in adult relationships too. Research consistently shows that loneliness is reduced not by the presence of one relationship, but by diverse and supportive social networks. Men who invest in friendships, practice vulnerability, and seek emotional support report better mental health outcomes and lower levels of isolation. Similarly, engaging in community, mentorship, or caregiving roles outside of fatherhood can fulfill the desire for generativity without placing the weight of one's loneliness on a child. This means that the cure to male loneliness is less about who you are connected to and more about how you connect. Practicing openness, emotional literacy, and mutual care are the real remedies. Fatherhood may be one path to meaning, but it is not the only one, and certainly not the simplest. In the end, the answer is less dramatic but more hopeful. The cure to male loneliness is not found in becoming a single father, but in learning to create, sustain, and value human connection wherever it can be found. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this one as well. Anyways, if you liked the video, don't forget to press the like button and subscribe. If you have any comments or suggestions, feel free to comment it down below. I don't get a lot of comments, so I read all of them. Again, you can support me in my Ko-fi page, which is linked in the description. Also, don't forget to join our community Discord server so you can vote in the polls for the video next week. That's about it. As always, subscribe if you like eggs.